seems to be a mass exodus of black women from the American workforce this year. It's so sharp, it's being called a warning sign for the entire economy. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is showing roughly 300,000 black women were no longer in the U.S. workforce, and in just 3 months. The agency also found that the unemployment rate for black women sits at 6%, which is double that of white women. Black women also make up 12% of the federal workforce compared to just 7% of the private sector. This is viewed as an overrepresentation in the federal roles and a place which has seen major reductions. Here now to help us make sense of it all is Katica Roy. Katica, welcome to the show. Katica, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. When you hear that 300,000 black women have left or have been pushed out of the workforce in just 3 months, what's the first thing that jumps to your mind about this?
The first thing that jumps to my mind is actually what it means for Georgia. One of the things that we know is that overall, while 300,000 black women left the labor force in 90 days, almost 13,000 of them were in Georgia, costing the state almost $1.6 billion in GDP. That is a policy failure with a measurable price tag.
Do we know why this is taking place?
Well, yes, we do. There were cuts to the federal labor force. There have been dismantling of DEI programs. We have seen DEI programs drop by almost half in the last 2 years. And that has actually affected black women. You mentioned that black women's representation is about 12% of the federal labor force, double their overall representation in the labor force. And actually in Georgia, their representation of the federal labor force is 25%.
What does it say about how the market is working now or not working?
Well, black women are really what is called the canary in the coal mine when we talk about labor force participation, because you see the intersection of race and gender, and they tend to be the impacted the most and first. And one of the things that we have seen is that cuts to public education and healthcare have impacted them the most.
Yeah. What kind of stress does this create for mothers trying to keep food on the table?
It's a huge stress, especially in the state of Georgia. One of the things that we know is that within black households in the state of Georgia, moms are the breadwinners in 80% of those households, and they have the largest gender pay gap of any women in the labor force. It's 44 cents on the dollar. So investing in black breadwinner moms is an investment in today's economy and the future.
What makes Georgia unique among some of the other southern cities?
Well, they have a large representation of black breadwinner moms. They also have a pretty high representation of the federal labor force. So when you look at a little over 3% of the federal labor force was cut, and 33% of that 3% were black women. Yeah,
you mentioned the federal jobs. Will it mean that we'll move over into the private sector? We'll see that number go up, perhaps?
Maybe. I mean, I think one of the things that we're seeing with a write down of almost 90% of job growth in the last 3 months is the question of can black women find jobs? And if they can't, a lot of times what they do is turn to entrepreneurship, not out of luxury, but actually out of survival.
So you're thinking this thing could turn around one way or the other?
Well, we hope so, but we know that overall, 300,000 black women leaving the labor force, overall for the United States, it takes out $37 billion in GDP. And that doesn't even count what's happening with inflation, where women's goods are rising at 170% greater than men's goods.
So what would a company or a government agency need to do differently tomorrow to keep black women in the workforce?
Well, they need to restore public sector jobs. They need to invest in diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the things that we've also seen is the artificial intelligence. We need to invest in in skilling black women to increase their representation in tech. And then lastly, what we need to do is look at policy through an intersectional gender lens, which basically means gender plus race and ethnicity. We often assume that public policy is gender neutral. It isn't, it's gender ignorant. And that actually ensures, when we look at that and ensure that it's inclusive, that's a better economic opportunity for everyone.
If you could speak as policymakers right now, what would be one of the things you would say to them to help stop this trend?
I would say invest in Black women. We need to invest in their skilling. We need to invest in their inclusion. One of the things that we know is that the reason that Black women have such a high concentration in the federal labor force is because it's one of the places where they have had a more equitable pay and more equitable opportunity. If we can guarantee that not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector, that's not only good for Black women, it's actually good for our entire economy.
Lastly, if you could talk to some of the women who've lost their jobs and looking for hope, what would you say to them right now?
I would say that to keep going, to band together. I have heard from so many people since my last MSNBC, since my MSNBC article published, and we need to come together and work together to ensure equitable opportunities for everyone.
Katica Roy, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for your insight today. Really appreciate it.